She told me to use the kitchen entrance, not the front door, not the dining room, the kitchen. 7 months pregnant, in my best dress, after a 40-minute drive. And I smiled. I said, of course. I sat down at a table meant for mail and grocery lists alone while 11 people laughed in the next room. I could hear them through the window, the clink of glasses, his laugh, her laugh, the woman sitting in my chair. I told myself it was fine. I had been telling myself that for 4 years. Then the water hit me. Cold, deliberate, in front of everyone. And the room went silent. Not because they were horrified, because not one of them moved. Not even him. Lesson line: the moment you stop making excuses for the people who hurt you in public, that is the moment your real life begins. This is a story about a woman who gave everything to a family that was never going to let her in. It's about learning painfully, slowly, that loyalty to the wrong people is not love. It's survival. And survival is not the same as living. If you have ever smiled through something that broke you inside, you already know this woman. So this story finds the women who need it. Drop a comment, yeah, kitchen table. If you stayed too long somewhere you were never welcome, subscribe, because every week we tell the stories the dining room never wanted you to hear.
She must stay with us. This is not about a girl who was corrected. It is about the moment a family protects its future from a poor decision. I did what was necessary. The most powerful thing I can do is remove those who make my son smaller. He was never going to make room for her, knowing it was the only solution. For every woman who loved her child enough to know that the wrong person can cost him everything: his career, his confidence, his voice. It will arrive in your own home at an unexpected hour. It might feel like cold water, or a locked door, or a quiet, final conversation. That moment will be difficult, and it will be clarifying. It will cost you something you thought you needed. And on the other side, if you are strong enough, there is the family you saved, a table with your name at its head, one you preserved for the people who truly belong. If my actions stay with you, if you understand the weight of that picture, of that quiet dismissal, then you already know why choices like these matter. We will see you next time. The sound of silverware was the sound of order. Laughter filled the hall, the warm, familiar sound of a family in its proper arrangement. And then a voice, my voice, cut through it. I assumed Grant told you to use the side entrance today. We have a full table. She stood in the doorway, a monument to poor judgment. Cecily Harmon, 7 months pregnant, her feet surely aching. The blue dress was a nice effort, a futile attempt to belong. Her hands gripped the door frame. Her child, another complication, kicked inside her. Grant had been told the plan, a full table. His exact words to her were his own foolish mistake. Just mom and dad. He had always been too soft. The dining room held 11 people. I saw them all. They were my people, my world, all in their rightful places. At the far end, in the chair Cecily once occupied, sat Sloane Whitfield. That chair was near the kitchen. Convenient for someone who served. Sloane was not there to serve. She wore cashmere. Her hair was perfect. She looked at Cecily, not with guilt, but with the calm assurance of someone who knows she has won. My eyes moved from Sloane to my son. Grant stood by the sideboard, holding a glass of water. He was talking to his cousin. He laughed. Then his eyes found her in the doorway. His face changed. It was the look of a man watching a problem he ignored finally arrive on his doorstep. He did not move. He did not lower his glass. He did not speak her name. He knew. Of course he knew. She drove 40 minutes in her best dress because my son was a coward. Douglas Harmon, my husband, started to rise from his seat. Always the gentleman, always soft. He once told her she was a good woman. He meant it as a kindness. I saw it as a weakness. "Cecily, sweetheart," he began. "She is fine where she is," I said. My voice was not unkind. It was firm. It was clear. "Cecily, the kitchen table is set for you. It will be much more comfortable there. Less noise," I continued. "Better for the baby." There it was, an undeniable truth. I watched her look at the kitchen table. She was always searching for another meaning, a kinder one. She was a child in that way. She would not find one today. She smiled that weak smile. She said, "Of course." She walked to the kitchen. I counted her steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. She disappeared around the corner. By the refrigerator, she finally allowed her composure to break. I could not see it, but I knew it. The kitchen smelled of my roast. It was perfect. Everything I make is perfect. Her attempts at cooking were another gentle reminder of her inadequacy. She sat at the work table. A small surface for notes and mail. A single place was set. One plate, one glass, one set of utensils. It had been prepared. This was not chaos. It was an orchestrated event. She would sit there alone. This had been planned. Her baby moved. A slow question from within. She put her hands on her belly. She whispered something. She picked up her phone, then put it down. There were no words for this. Not for her. Through the pass-through window, she could hear us. The clink of glasses, the warmth of a family that belonged together. She had sat with us for 4 years. She had brought the wine. She had said the right things. She had tried. She had always taken up the precise amount of space she was allowed. Never an inch more. She gave up a promotion to follow my son. A foolish, sentimental choice. She thought they were a team. She learned today, alone at that kitchen table, that she was not. Then, my voice carried through the open window. It was bright. It was warm. It was for Sloane. "I want you to know," I said, "whatever happens, you will always have a place at this table. Always." Cecily put her glass down. Her hand was shaking. "Whatever happens." She stared at the single plate set before her. One plate, one glass, one ending. This was an act of mercy. She simply could not see it. I placed one set of silverware for her at the kitchen table. It was a quiet space, away from the chatter, a place to spare her the pain of what was to come. I had already made my decision. The future of this family did not include her at our table. The baby. I knew she was thinking of the baby, her hand on her belly. The kitchen door made its familiar sound. Grant was here. I did not need to see him to know. The air itself changes when he enters a room. He spoke to her in that careful, low voice, the one he uses for problems, not for people. He asked her not to do this today. She had done nothing. She had said nothing. She just sat there, a silent accusation. He held his glass of water. He claimed he did not know Sloane would be here. He was always a terrible liar. I taught him better, but some things never stick. He was a poor actor with the small things. The large deceptions he managed, but the little tells always gave him away. The way his voice lifted at the end of a sentence. A statement turned into a question, begging for rescue. The way his eyes would not meet hers, landing on her forehead instead. He was looking at her forehead now. She asked him a quiet question. "How long?" Her voice was level. I felt a small flicker of admiration. Grant's jaw tightened. He shifted his weight. He tried to explain it away as work. My invitation, the whole team. A laughable excuse. She saw right through it. She asked how many from his team were at the table. Silence was his only answer. 1. She said the number for him. Just her. She asked again, "How long?" He paused. The silence stretched. "Since August," he finally said. She did not cry. She did the numbers in her head. August. It was March. 7 months. Sloane Whitfield had been my guest for 7 months. The same 7 months Cecily had been carrying my grandchild. Twice before, I had seated her in the kitchen. I called it overflow seating. She had accepted it. She had set it aside, trusting me. She never set aside the right things. She was not a strategic thinker. She asked him if I knew. If I knew about him and Sloane. Grant was silent. He said there was nothing to know. She did not accept that answer. She pressed him. This silence was different. It was heavy. I could feel it from the dining room. She could read it. A teacher's skill, I suppose, reading a room. She knew then that I knew. That I had always known. The kitchen table was never about extra guests. It was containment, a place for the temporary wife, while the permanent one sat with family. I once told Sloane she would always have a place here. Cecily must have remembered. She said it aloud, a fact realized. I am not crazy, she said. I know what I saw. Grant flinched. He deserved to flinch. He was weak. I married him to a strong woman. Or so I thought. He was the man who proposed on a rooftop. The man who held her hand during her father's surgery. The one who told her she was the only thing he was certain of. I remember hearing that. It was a lovely sentiment. It was also untrue. Certainty is a luxury my son cannot afford. She wondered when he stopped being certain. She wondered if she ever truly knew him. Why did you not tell me she would be here? That was her next question, he stammered. He thought it would be fine. The sheer foolishness of that thought. To think she would arrive at my home, find that woman in her chair, and believe it was fine. He looked at her forehead again. A coward. I remembered December. She found a text message on his phone. A restaurant. A time. A kiss. She confronted him in the morning. He called it a work dinner. A client meeting. He had told her it was a client meeting Sloane had organized. He said it with the confidence of truth. No high pitch in his voice. No glance at her forehead. She believed him. She had to believe him. The alternative was this, sitting in my kitchen, 7 months pregnant, with the truth closing in. She was not ready in December. She was not ready now. But readiness is irrelevant. Life does not wait. Did your mother invite her today because I was coming? A direct question. His silence was the answer. Her phone made a sound on the table. A friend, I presumed, offering rescue. She started to type a reply. I am fine. Then the sound came from the dining room, through the window, through the door, not a scream, a splash, deliberate. My husband Douglas, his voice sharp with pain, a tone I had never heard from him. Dorothea, that is enough. Then, a new kind of silence. A silence that was stunned, electric. She was moving before I could stop her. She was coming back. She heard her name. She heard the silence that followed. She heard 11 people holding their breath. The part of her that was always so careful, so accommodating, made a choice. She would no longer sit in the kitchen. She pushed the door open. She walked back into my dining room. Sloane had been talking about the nursery, the pale green walls, the crib, details my son had given her, details that were not hers to know. The room fell silent when she appeared. I was already on my feet. I have thought about that moment, what I saw in that half second. I think I was looking at my son, waiting for him to finally act, to finally choose, to finally stand between his wife and his mother. To do the thing I had been waiting for him to do. He never did. He never would. So I acted. I reached across the table. I took the crystal water pitcher in both hands. My movements were steady, deliberate. This was not a loss of control. It was the complete assertion of it. I poured the water, a long, steady arc of ice-cold liquid. It struck her shoulder. It ran down her chest. It soaked her blue dress. The room was silent again, a deep, profound shock. The water was very cold. She stood perfectly still. She felt it on her skin. She felt the dress cling to her body. She felt the baby kick, a sharp, startled movement. She felt all of it and said nothing. I set the empty pitcher down on the table. The sound was a small, precise click. I think it is time for you to go, Cicely. My voice was calm, regretful even, like I was dismissing a servant. You have been making a scene since you arrived. Making a scene. She had been sitting alone in my kitchen. Grant had not moved an inch. He stood in the same spot, glass in hand, watching. He was watching the consequences of his weakness arrive, and he was utterly unequipped to handle them. My husband, Douglas, was on his feet. His face was gray. He looked horrified. He had just witnessed something necessary. Sloane was still. She was not looking at me. She was looking at Cicely. Her expression was not one of victory. It was not satisfaction. Across the wreckage of my perfectly set table, it looked very much like shame. I watched her face. It needed to be done. A sharp, cold shock to bring her back to reality. She was ruining my son. The laugh that finally came was not broken. It was clarifying. She had finally understood her place was no longer here. I felt a sense of rightness as she left the room. She walked through the kitchen, a place she never truly commanded, and took her purse. My mother taught me the same lesson. A woman must always be prepared. She went into the bathroom, a child hiding. Let her sit in the cold. Let her feel the damp reality. The baby was a complication, a last, desperate anchor she thought would hold her here. I put my hand on my own stomach, remembering. A mother does what is necessary. I was saving my son. She was fine. We were all fine. The room was silent now. Order was restored. I allowed myself 4 minutes of quiet satisfaction. Then I knew the call would come. Her brother, the protector. She would run to him, of course. She would tell her story. Water on a dress. Such a small thing to cause such a fracture. It was not the water. It was the years of her not being enough. This silence was different. It was the sound of a problem being contained. Reed. She would call him. Let him come. He would find nothing here but a family managing its own affairs. I was not worried. I was prepared. The conversation was already over in my mind. He had no power here. She stood in the mirror. I could picture it. Her face, a blank slate, not strong, just empty. She had expected a storm, but I had given her a quiet flood. It was more effective. I had told her the truth without a single word. She was not suited for this life. She was not one of us. Then the phone would ring. Reed. Of course. His voice, that single word, her name. The name of a little girl, not a woman. He kept her a child. That was the root of the problem. He coddled her, he made her weak. I did the opposite. I was trying to make her strong. Something in her chest came loose. It was acceptance. She was finally letting go. She knew it was over. I knew they were talking. He would be choosing his words, always so precise. He thought his control of language gave him power, a businessman's trick. Real power is not spoken. It is held, in land, in name, in blood. He believed he was saving her. He was only delaying the inevitable. She would need to be ready for the world. I was making her ready. He was just building her a prettier cage. He had been watching, waiting, gathering his little pieces of information. He thought he had options. He did not understand. There was only one option. The family continues. The line endures. Everything else is secondary. He would not work through it. Grant is my son. He is weak. He needs a firm hand. My hand. Reed would never understand that. The doorbell rang. 20 minutes. No, 19. That was his way. A pointless show of efficiency. I walked to the door. My house, my rules, my heels clicked on the hardwood floor. A sound of authority. A sound he would understand. He would see me in control. He would see that his sister's little drama had not disturbed the order of my home. The door opened. I saw his face. I knew that look. He thought he was here to fix something. He was wrong. He was here to witness my control. I remained perfectly calm. I would handle this. I stood in my home, in my Sunday clothes, my chin held high. I looked at him. He was just a boy with a large bank account. His success was a novelty. Not true standing. I would be gracious. This is a family matter, I explained. He did not care for family. He cared only for her. He said I poured water on her. An accident, I corrected. He mentioned her pregnancy, as if that child belonged only to her. That child is a Harmon. My grandchild. He paused. He thought he was making a point. He was only confirming what I already knew. He saw this as an attack. It was a correction. I have watched men like him my entire life. They think they are clever. They think they are 3 moves ahead. They are not. Reed was merely reacting to a situation I had created. He said Cicely was coming with him. A temporary measure. Grant appeared then, useless. He stood between us, a man who had never learned how to be a force himself. Reed spoke to him, words like stones. You let your mother pour water on your pregnant wife. The silence that followed was Grant's entire life in a single moment. He had nothing to say. It was true. I had acted because he would not. I was protecting him from his own weakness. Reed did not understand. He was not speaking for my sake. He was speaking for his own. He did not need to raise his voice. He had a different kind of weapon. A company. Money. $900 million. He used it with precision. A meeting. An attorney. Carter Webb. The Harmon Family Trust. He listed his threats calmly. He spoke of financial structures and interesting activity. This was not about honor. This was about currency. How common. Dorothea said nothing. My face remained a mask. Cicely walked past, her purse, her keys, a card from Douglas. She had her daughter. She thought she had won. She was just a piece on the board, a piece being moved by a new player. He failed. My husband always fails to act in time. I knew he was not a wicked man. He was simply a weak one. For 35 years, he chose comfort when I needed resolve. Now the consequences of his weakness were unfolding. I held no hatred for him. I understood his limits. He gave the girl a card. She would see it later. My son, my poor Grant, spoke softly. So softly, a pathetic apology she barely heard. She touched my husband's arm, a fleeting gesture of pity. Outside, the air was cold. Her brother led her to his car. He did not touch her, a perfect imitation of respect. He had always been precisely like that. She entered the car. He drove away. The silence was his strategy. He always gave her space. Then he would listen to her poison. I saw the card in her hand. Carter Webb, a lawyer for families like ours. On the back, my husband's shaky script, a useless, sentimental gesture. I watched them drive away into the night. The first part of the plan was complete. They stopped outside his apartment building. She spoke for 22 minutes. I could picture it perfectly. Her watching the clock, counting her grievances, my son's anger, would be a quiet thing. His hands steady on the wheel, his eyes fixed ahead. That is how he contains his rage. A trait I taught him. The quiet meant he was furious with me. How long did you know? Her brother would ask. About Sloane? She would look at her small hands. She found a message in December. On his phone, a restaurant, a time, a foolish little symbol. Grant's excuse was a work dinner, something organized for a client. He said it correctly. He made it sound true. She believed him, of course. She believed him because she is a child who needs fairy tales. She turned the thought over in her mind. She would call it weakness. I knew it was something else entirely. It was predictable. It was something far more useful than weakness. It was a need for survival. She was 12 weeks pregnant. She had left her life behind to move into his house. She had no career. She needed the lie to be true. Her brother would nod. He would never say the things that would make her feel worse. He never does. I thought about the little moments, the memories she must be replaying. That first Christmas at our home. She brought some dreadful cranberry dish. I set it aside. I did not taste it. We have a system, I had told her. A polite and simple fact. She laughed. A brittle sound. Later, she told Grant I liked it. She believed her own little lies. Then the pregnancy, the test on the counter, my son's face. That pause, that tiny hesitation before his smile. Then, I will call Mom. Not your mother, my mother. It was my news to share. She knew it even then. The order of things. I pressed send. The message was a clean cut, a necessary surgery. She would see his name on her screen and scroll through my life. She would search for the truth she both wanted and did not want to find. I knew this because I had done it myself. I had deleted my own history, hiding the obsession from myself. Grant had painted her as a ghost in their own home. He said she was lost in herself. He claimed I was the one who saw him. He said she deserved to know. I was simply delivering the news. I was doing her a favor. It was a kindness, this wound I was opening. It felt righteous. It felt correct. It was the only good thing to do. I just did not know what she would do with the knowing. I waited in the quiet of my own apartment. It was nothing like the one he described to me. His was a museum of good taste, a space built for a life I could not picture. He said it was comfortable in a way that required careful thought. He made it sound like a fortress. He told me about her tea, chamomile with honey, a detail meant to prove her simplicity, her predictability. I saw her there on a perfect couch, her hands around a warm mug. Her baby would move inside of her, a secret conversation between them. He told me about the baby with a strange mix of pride and fear. He looked at her belly in my mind's eye, a look I had seen on his face, protective and fierce and almost broken. He had said she was strong. He had said they would get through this. The city made its sounds outside my window. My own phone was dark. A message from him arrived. I turned it face down. I did not read it. He is asking you to come back, her brother said. No, he is asking me to make it easy for him. She looked at her cold tea. He has always asked me to make things easier for him. I have always done it. I am very good at that. She put the mug down. I am done being good at it. Her brother would watch her. He would see the change. What do you want to do? He asked her. And the girl, who had not known what she wanted in 4 years, who had been so busy managing my son, so busy adjusting, so busy accommodating. Her own desires had become a language she forgot how to speak. She sat with his question. She did not rush. Slowly, in the quiet of that sterile apartment, with her daughter moving inside her, the answer she thinks is her own began to form. It was 2:47 in the morning. The guest room was dark. The city was a distant noise. The sheets were expensive. The pillow was perfect. None of it would bring her peace. The girl was awake. She had been awake since 1. She watched the clock on her phone. At 1 in the morning, the thoughts always grow louder. She opened her notes. She makes lists. Her mother did it. Her grandmother did it. A tedious little habit. When the world becomes too much, they write down facts. They look at them in a neat row. It gives them the illusion of control. She typed things she knew. 1. Grant has been seeing Sloane. 2. I knew. I have known for months. I made my plans accordingly. 3. She did not know. She suspected. She chose not to see. 4. My husband suspected. He gave her the lawyer's card. He is not entirely a fool. 5. Her daughter will be born in 9 weeks. 6. She has no job. She has not worked in 14 months. 7. The house is in both of their names. A problem to be solved. I put $40,000 into that house. 8. She loves him. Or she thinks she does. She loves a version of him I created for her. 9. She is not sure which is worse. Loving the real man who disappointed her, or loving a fantasy that was never real. She stared at her little list. I was so stupid, she thought. Then she corrected herself. A pointless distinction. She was not stupid. She was managed. There is a difference. Stupid would mean the information was hidden. The information was not hidden. She was given a carefully constructed reality by a man who is very good at constructing realities. And by me. I have been managing outcomes for 62 years. She was not stupid. She was merely trusting. She was willing to believe the best story. She loved him, and that love made her blind. It made her generous, with doubt. She closed her phone. She lay in the dark. She let herself feel the anger. Not the hot, messy anger from the dining room. This was a different kind. A cold and useful anger. The kind that comes when you stop making excuses, when you see things as they are. He knew Sloane would be there. He let her drive 40 minutes in that dress. He just stood there. She replayed the moment again and again. My son, Grant, his feet planted on the floor, a man watching his own life detonate. For 4 years, she believed he found conflict difficult. She made allowances for this weakness. She smoothed things over. She managed my feelings for him because he was too weak to do it himself. She was done managing. She was done with my feelings and his comfort. She was done pretending everything was fine. She was done because she finally understood. In the space she created for him, in the space she maintained by managing everything, something else had been allowed to grow. My plan. He had not chosen me. He had not asked me. He had simply made a space for me in the cracks of his life. I had made myself smaller and smaller to fit. That was the thought that finally broke something free. Not anger at her, not entirely. It was anger at the story he told. The patient, careful, accommodating version of me that had listened to his complaints about their life. He spoke of dismissed plans and quiet dinners. I never once said, "This is not my problem. I am not going to fix this for you." I was not going to sit there anymore. At 4 in the morning, I imagined her awake. I imagined her in the dark stillness, a stillness that could mean anything. My own breath caught in my chest. 1 minute, 2 minutes. A world of fear can exist in 2 minutes. I pressed my hand against my own stomach. There was nothing there, just an empty ache. I was on my feet, pacing my small living room. I imagined her waking him, her hand raised to knock on a door. I pictured her needing someone. She had decided to handle this herself, he always said. Independent. And then her body would make a decision her mind had not voted on. I saw him opening a door in 15 seconds. He was always half awake, ready for a crisis. I know it is probably nothing, she would say. I need to go to the hospital. He would say, "Get your shoes." He would have his coat on in 60 seconds. The hospital would be quiet. At 4:45 in the morning, the lights would make everything feel flat and unreal. A television would play silently in a waiting room. A nurse would offer a practice smile. At 5:10, they would be in a room. A doctor would arrive at 5:15. She had help. She was not alone. He told me about her doctor, a precise, unhurried woman in her 50s. A woman who listened with the full weight of her attention. He spoke of her with respect, a tone he rarely used. The doctor would do the ultrasound herself. The screen would fill with life. A heartbeat would come through, steady and regular, 142 beats per minute. "She is fine," the doctor would say. "She may have just shifted position." The proof would be right there. The curve of a small spine, the movement of small hands, the heartbeat that knew nothing of our terrible, tangled lives. I imagined her starting to cry then, not just from relief, but from the weight of everything else. The large and shapeless thing that had been growing for a very long time, the thing I had just given a name to. She would cry quietly. He had said she cried in a way that tried not to make it a thing. He would step into the hallway. The doctor would sit beside her. She would not say anything at first. She would just wait. "I am sorry," his wife would say. "I knew she was probably fine." "You made the right choice coming in," the doctor would say. Always. The statistics are not comforting at 4 in the morning. His wife would almost laugh. The doctor would talk about stress. She would say, "It is not nothing. It is not minor. Your body is holding it. Your baby is in a body that is holding it. That matters. I want you to rest." She would know. She would know his wife had been lying in the dark, counting something, just like I had been. "What do you actually need?" the doctor would ask. "Not what you should do. What do you need?" The question would hang in the air, open and patient. She would think for a long moment. "I need to stop being a woman things happen to." The doctor would not be surprised. She would not offer empty reassurances. She would be steady. "Then start," she would say. She would leave to get the paperwork. He would come back with 2 cups of terrible coffee. He would hand her one. She would take it. They would sit in plastic chairs while the world went on around them. "She is okay," he would say. "She is okay," she would answer. Down the hall, a baby would cry. A new sound in the world. She would listen to it. He would look at the floor. He would know what was coming. "I will set it up," he would say. "No drama. Just that." They would drink their terrible coffee in the quiet. Outside, the sky would begin to change. A suggestion of morning. Her phone would buzz. She would look at it. She would be expecting him. But the name on the screen would be mine, Sloane Whitfield. She would stare at it for a long moment. He would sit beside her, not looking, very carefully, not looking at her phone. She would open the message. "I think we should talk. Just us. There are things you should know that Grant has not told you. I am sorry about tonight. I am sorry about a lot of things." She would read it twice. She would show it to him. His face would give nothing away. "Do I respond?" she would ask. "That," he would say, "is entirely your choice." She would look at my words for another long moment. Then she would put the phone away. She would deal with me later. She would choose the place. A coffee shop 3 days later, 12 blocks from his building, public, neutral, easy to escape. She would let someone drive her. That person would be parked outside with their hazard lights on, ready to intervene. I was already inside when she arrived. I took a table near the back. The seat faced the door. I watched her come in. She did not look like the woman he had described. The cashmere sweater was gone. She wore a plain gray coat she did not take off, as if she was not sure she had the right to be there. The last 3 days had not been kind to me either. "Thank you for coming," I said. She sat down across from me. "I have not decided yet if I should have," she said. "Fair." I knew then this was not a rescue. This was a reckoning. She was gone. The server came and went. The house was quiet. I thought about the other one, Sloane, a foolish girl. A simple complication Grant should have handled. He told her there was an arrangement, that the marriage was over. He lied, of course. He always takes the easy path. The pregnancy was a last attempt, a failed one. He told the girl Cecily was fine. Fine. Such a weak word. I told myself it was true because I wanted it to be. The girl's words echoed in my own mind. I wanted my son to have a proper wife. I wanted the family to be secure. So I let myself believe this could be fixed. I have been doing the same thing for years. I see that now. This was not a correction. It was a mistake. She would later claim she did not know I would do that. "I did not know what you thought I would do. I thought I would make her feel unwelcome until she left. That was the plan. A simple, quiet removal. This was just a more direct method. It does not excuse what happened. Of course it does not. It was not meant to be excused. It was meant to be final. I looked at the woman my son had chosen, 27 years old, not a villain, just a girl who listened to a story my son is very good at telling. A girl who made choices, and now she was sitting in the results of those choices. Cicely would not forgive her. Forgiveness is for the weak. She would see her as a person, without jealousy, without anger. You said you had things to tell me. Tell me. The words were a demand. The beginning of a new war. I had simply fired the first shot. It was a delicate balance. I had built a structure to protect them both. The words I sent Sloane were anchors, meant to keep her steady. She needed to know Cicely understood, that things were under control. The pregnancy was a complication, a minor detail in a much larger design. It required careful management. The future I described was not a lie. It was a blueprint for stability, a future where everyone had their place. Cicely did not need the burden of those details. I gave each of them the truth they could handle. This was not cruelty, it was kindness, it was order. Now Sloane hands her the phone. A single point of failure, a crack in the foundation I so carefully laid. They were reading my work without understanding the architecture. They saw only the pieces, not the whole, perfect thing I was building for us. They would call it manipulation, a simple word for a complex act of preservation. I constructed a reality where everyone could be safe, where no one had to face the sharp edges of the world. It was not my fault that the world had so many sharp edges. He used us, she would say, a child's summary of a man's hard work. I gave each of them a path forward, a manageable life. My love was not a fantasy, it was a practical, working thing. It kept the gears turning. But they had to become invisible to the truth for their own good. And now they stand together, sharing a look. It is not forgiveness, it is not friendship. It is the cold, shared glance of demolition experts. They think they see me clearly. They see nothing. They are looking at the plans for a house they have just decided to burn down, and they are handing each other the matches. She thought I wronged her because of the baby. The pregnancy was the complication, not the cause. It was an event to be managed, like any other. I was managing it. I was protecting a delicate system. Cicely did not deserve the disruption, and Sloane did not deserve to be cast aside because of it. I was ensuring everyone had what they needed. It was all true, she said, but truth is a matter of perspective. She was giving Cicely the tools to dismantle everything. For what? A moment of misplaced solidarity, a shared wound. They would walk away from the wreckage together, leaving me to stand in the rubble. They would see it as justice. I see it as a failure of their imagination, a collapse of a perfectly good structure, an arrangement that could have worked if only they had trusted me, if only they had stayed in their designated places. I wore a yellow dress to the wedding. That is what she will remember. Not the vows, not the promises, just a color. Now another man reads my words, a precise man named Carter Webb, who uses glasses as a weapon. He examines the delicate threads of my work, the financial records, the messages to Sloane. He sees a pattern of deceit. I see a pattern of careful stewardship. I moved money to create stability, to build a safety net outside of our shared accounts. It was not illegal. It was responsible. It was a story of a man preparing for all outcomes. He calls my messages to Sloane misrepresentation. He does not understand. They were reassurance. They were a tailored reality, designed to prevent panic. This lawyer, he sees a crime. I see a carefully managed piece, now shattered by people who prefer the ugliness of truth. He calls it a paper trail, a collection of lies. He does not see the care I took. He does not understand that my words to another woman were a kindness to my wife. They kept things calm. They prevented a storm. Court, he says, respond to this. Courts respond to simple stories, good and evil, true and false. They have no room for the complexity of what I was trying to build. My mother will understand. She knows that sometimes you must steer things quietly from the shadows, that a man must make difficult choices to protect his legacy. Cicely thinks I never made a decision on my own. It is the opposite. I have been making every single decision for everyone this entire time. They just did not know it. Now they want to make me pay for it. She can nod. She can feel resolved. She is only following a script written by a man in glasses. The fear was not mine to feel. It was hers. I had done everything to prevent it. Now she feels strong, making her little lists. She finds satisfaction in dismantling our life, moving into an apartment. Reed's building, of course. He hovers over her like a vulture. She calls doctors and movers. Each call is a deliberate act of destruction. Each checked box is a stone removed from the foundation of our home. This is not a woman building something new. This is a woman tearing everything down. She thinks she decided this in a hospital. She did not decide. She reacted. She chose chaos over the difficult, quiet order I had created for her. And now she will call her mother. She will tell a simplified story. She will paint me as the villain. A neat, easy narrative for a world that cannot handle the truth. I knew Caroline liked me. She saw the man I presented, the steady man. That man was real. He was the one trying to hold everything together. He was the one Cicely was now erasing with her phone call. So I came. Reed let me into the building, a small, unexpected courtesy, and she met me in the lobby. Not in private, in public, by the entrance, where she could stage an exit. It was a performance. I could see the sleepless nights on her face, but she wore them like armor. I had come to explain, to rebuild the structure, to show her the blueprint she had misunderstood. I was not the villain. I was the architect of a life she had chosen to condemn without ever reading the plans. And as I sat there, across from her, I finally understood. She did not want an explanation. She wanted a ruin. It was a cleansing. That is what I told myself. A necessary act to wash away the impurity from my house. He needed to see. My son needed to understand that this love was a sickness. She was a weakness he could not afford. I stood before them all, my friends, my family, my beautiful table set for a perfect lunch. The crystal pitcher felt heavy in my hands. It felt righteous. Every choice I made was to protect him, from her, from himself. This was not cruelty. This was love. A stronger love than she could ever comprehend. She would never understand the sacrifices required to maintain a legacy. She was a guest in a life she thought she could own, and I was simply showing her the door. It had to be done. The silence that followed was a betrayal. Not a single person understood. They looked at me with horror, not with gratitude. I had saved him, and they saw a monster. I wanted them to leave. I needed to restore order to my home, to my life. My husband's anger was the sharpest cut. He did not see the protection. He only saw the spectacle. I walked through my quiet house that night. Every perfect object was in its perfect place. But the foundation was cracked. I had made my decision. It was the only one possible. I put my hand on a cool marble counter. I would not be undone by their sentimentality. I would simply have to manage this new ugliness. Order would be restored. It always is. The call came at 2 in the morning. It was from a friend, a traitor. Her voice was a nervous whisper. "Dorothea, there is a video." She said the words as if they were poison. Of course there is a video. My world is filled with vultures. My version of events would not matter now. not against 19 seconds of curated reality. Then the second blow. Douglas. My husband was leaving. He was not just leaving. He was taking documents. He was giving our life's work to our son's attorney. He was helping her. He chose that girl. After all these years, he chose her. My spine felt like ice. The spice of betrayal was sharp on my tongue. The world was tilting. Someone sent me the link. I could not bring myself to look at the numbers. Reed said 19 seconds. A lifetime of devotion erased, in 19 seconds, my blue dress. The picture held so carefully, the clear, deliberate arc of the water, my voice, calm and certain. I think it is time for you to go. They did not show what came before. They did not show the years of quiet negotiation. The years of watching my son shrink. The public would not see that. They would only see the crystal pitcher. They would see a villain. They would not see a mother trying to save her child. It was a consequence I had not engineered, but it was one I would have to endure. I had tried for 4 years. I invited her to lunches. I tried to teach her our ways. I attempted to mold her into someone worthy of the Harmon name. I was not the problem to be solved. I was the solution she refused to accept. She was the obstacle. She stood between my son and his future, a future I had carefully built for him his entire life. There was no version where she could become small enough, because her ambition was always too large. The financial arrangements were simply prudence, protecting what was ours from a foreseeable storm. It was not a plot. It was a parent's duty. There was no pleasure in this, only a profound disappointment in my son's blindness. Carter presented the documents. My husband's betrayal, laid out on a conference table. Grant did not fight. He folded. He surrendered the legacy I had fought to protect. He told Carter that I said she would leave anyway. I was right. It was only a matter of time. And what did he say? Nothing. He said nothing. He allowed her to win. Sloane signed her statement. The maid. Another disloyalty. I called Cicely 3 times. I would have explained it all. I would have made her understand. She did not answer. She let her lawyer handle it. A hired gun. It was a coward's response. A final confirmation that she was never one of us. The office was sterile, impersonal. I had to apologize. Those were the terms. I looked at Cicely. I said the words. What I did was wrong. I am sorry. The sentence was a cage in my mouth. It cost me more than she will ever know. I did not expect forgiveness. I saw the truth in her eyes. This was not about healing. It was about victory. It was evidence, accountability, consequences, words for the weak. I saw the crack in my world widen into a canyon. My son was gone. He had chosen his side. He would move through his life without my protection, and I knew with absolute certainty that he would eventually regret it. That was enough for today. A girl. My granddaughter was born on a Tuesday. The news arrived through a sterile text message. Nora sent it. Not my son. I was not there. I was not invited. The waiting room was filled with her people. Her mother, her friends. My son was there. He stood in the doorway and looked at his daughter. I could picture his face. The pure, human shock. He was a father now. A father to a child who would carry my name. But she would be raised by that woman. She would be taught to see me as a villain. He was a better man when he wasn't managing. I could see that clearly. It did not make me want her. It made me want my son back. Her name is Clara. Clara Caroline Harmon. A good name. A strong name. He is going to love her. I have no doubt of that. And she will be his weakness, just as her mother was. Cicely thinks she can build a relationship on this. She thinks this is the beginning of something new. She believes this is a kind of peace. She does not understand. This is not an ending. It is an intermission. A child is not a truce. A child is a legacy. A child can be influenced. A child can be taught. It will not be easy. It will require more of me than most things. But the world still contains order, and I am very, very good at putting things in their proper place. But I could see the fracture of it, a broken thing built around a woman's selfishness, with just enough space between them to let the poison spread. She took my granddaughter to that little apartment, 3 floors below my son, on a Thursday. The air probably smelled of cheap flowers, not the ones our family has cultivated for generations. She put the child in a cheap bed in a room with sickening green walls. Walls she painted herself, an act of petty rebellion. My son had sent a proper mobile. She had accepted it. At least she knew its value. She sat in a rocking chair, alone. The city churned below. My son was just upstairs. He was probably waiting for her to need him. She could summon him with a button. He would be there in 4 minutes. I know my son. She would not call. Not yet. She sat in her cheap chair. The pale afternoon light fell on her failure. She stared at my granddaughter. Clara, Caroline, Harmon. 3 days in this world. Her eyes were just opening to the mess her mother had made. Her small hands knew nothing yet. 3 weeks later, she had people in that place. My son, Reed, arrived with bags of food. His arms were full, a desperate attempt to fill the space she had emptied. He was overcompensating. Nora, that girl, sat on the floor. She claimed fine furniture made her anxious. No, standards made her anxious. She held my granddaughter with a confidence she did not earn. And Caroline was there, in the best chair, of course, after a 4-hour drive from nowhere, and my husband, Douglas. That surprised me. It was the deepest wound. He had been the first one in our family to crack. He gave her the lawyer's card, in our own hallway. He gave her our records. He left my luncheon after 15 minutes, a public humiliation. He was a man undoing 35 years of careful work. He was choosing sentiment over strength. I would not reward that. I would not pretend it was honorable. It was a betrayal. He was trying to exit through the wrong door. He sat in a corner, holding Clara. He looked at the child with a simpleton's gaze, no strategy, no thought for the future, just a foolish old man. My granddaughter blinked. She held his finger, a reflex. Nothing more. Reed came from the kitchen, offering good food or great food. He had bought both, a wasteful, foolish decision. He was begging for approval. Nora answered him. She has no taste. Why was this even a question? Because my son has lost his compass. Caroline asked what the difference meant. A pointless distinction. Quality is not a tier. It is a standard. Nora tried to explain it to her. The great one is simply better. This was never about food. Then Cicely laughed. I can imagine the sound, brittle and hollow, the laugh of someone who thinks they have won. She believed she had arrived somewhere. She was surprised it felt like this. This small, sad gathering, my son arguing with her friend, her mother, lost. She thought she was losing the warmth of our world. She was never truly in it. That was the price she refused to pay. She gave up a legacy. For this. She had not been in our rooms for a long time. She was always in the periphery, at the edge of things. This little table was hers, and every person there had chosen this lesser thing. She was not managing anything. She was adrift. At 3 a.m, the child would wake. Cicely would lift her in the dark apartment. It would be quiet. The false peace of a world holding its breath. She would reach for her phone, a nervous habit. 4 years of looking for threats, searching for something, deleting the evidence. She would pick up the phone, hold it, then put it down. There was nothing left to search for, no one to monitor, no history to erase. She had destroyed it all. There was just the baby, and a rocking chair. The city below, the sound of night, not silence, the sound of a world that moves on without you. She would think of the woman she was a year ago, in my kitchen, her hand on my refrigerator, counting her breaths, telling herself lies. She would tell herself she stayed out of love. She stayed because she believed in promises. These were not noble things. They were weaknesses. She would say a moment comes when the cost of staying and going are the same. A fantasy. You recognize that moment and you endure. You do not run. She pressed her cheek to the baby's head, the child of my child, a new person, a new problem. I thought losing this marriage would chasten her, I imagine she thinks. Instead, I found my true, small self. I am not who I was. I am not worthy of this family. I am whatever comes next, and what comes next is nothing. That is the part she does not understand. She thinks starting over means becoming someone new. But you cannot go back. The person you were is gone. The world you left no longer wants you. It is not an arrival. It is an exile. She held the baby in the dark, in an apartment that was entirely her problem, and thought the prison door was unlocked. It was not a prison. It was a sanctuary, and she just walked out. Clara slept. The deep, ignorant sleep of the very new. As if this broken world were a paradise. Cicely held her. She would not reach for her phone. She would rock, and my son would be asleep 3 floors away. And tomorrow, there would be consequences. Lawyers and papers, the ugly machinery of her choices. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, there was only the sound of a child's breathing. In that little room. Earlier, Claire had looked at every face, taking inventory of the people who had settled for this. Everyone who mattered was absent. Everyone who chose to uphold our name was not in that room. Cicely closed her eyes. She rocked her daughter. She was not afraid. She was simply present in the ruin she had made. She thought it was enough. She thought it was more than enough. She thought it was everything. Final thoughts. My statement, the legacy of a family, is built over generations. It is researched, constructed, and edited with care. Its purpose is to create meaning, to establish value. Every detail, from the marriages to the children, is part of a greater arc. The lessons woven throughout are designed to reflect the traditions that strong families navigate. We do not allow for automated destruction. We do not tolerate impulse. This family was built by hand, with intention, for a future she abandoned. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.